This is the QTV Nightly News coming to you from our studio on Caraba Avenue, and I am Lena Igweniba. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. The Gambian government, in collaboration with the Secretariat of the African Commission on Human and People's Rights, on Thursday began the hosting of the 81st Ordinary Session of the African Commission on Human and People's Rights. On Thursday, the Select Committee of Health, Children, Refugees and Humanitarian Relief convened a meeting with Ministry of Health officials to address the pressing challenges of importing medical drugs. The Gambia Ports Authority on Friday held a second phase retreat with the media to update the public on a ports concession signed by the Gambia government. The United Nations Development Programme commemorated World Poverty Day on Thursday, highlighting the urgent need to eradicate poverty and inequality in the Gambia. In international news, as World Food Day was observed this Wednesday, 16th October, it was revealed that Southern Africa is reeling from a severe drought exacerbated by El Niño, which has left 27 million people facing food insecurity, according to the World Food Programme. Those were the headlines. Now the news in detail. The Gambian government, in collaboration with the Secretariat of the African Commission on Human and People's Rights (ACHPR) on Thursday, began the hosting of the 81st Ordinary Session of the African Commission on Human and People's Rights. More in this report by Lamin Alaji Fanding Dabo.
The 20-day session is organized for human rights organizations in various countries to report on the progress made in their respective countries and exchange ideas and best practice. Africa as a continent remains at a crossroad as it continues to face serious human rights challenges. Dr. Joseph Whittle is the chairperson of the Network of African National Human Rights Institutions, NANRI.
NANRI stands in solidarity with human rights defenders and urges the African Commission to strengthen protection mechanisms for those on the front lines of human rights advocacy. Corruption undermines human rights, erodes trust in public institutions, and creates an enabling environment for abuse and exploitation. Combating corruption must be a priority, as it poses one of the greatest threats to achieving the human rights agenda in Africa.
The forum followed the completion of the NGO's Participation Forum, which was held in the Gambia from the 13th to the 15th of October 2024, during which the participants urged the African Commission to call on relevant states that are in conflicts to observe their obligations and ensure that they nurture peace and stability and observe the principles of democracy. Ms. Patience Zanili, the Director of Governance and Conflict Prevention at the African Union Commission, represented the chairperson of the African Union Commission, His Excellency Musa Faki Mahamat.
This session of the ACHPR is not just a routine meeting. It is a call to action. The work you do here must address the evolving and complex human rights landscape of Africa. We must strengthen our mechanisms for accountability, deepen our collaboration with civil society, and ensure that human rights are the foundation upon which all other aspects of development and governance rest.
In terms of conflicts, it is often the most vulnerable groups that suffered most, and these include women, children, refugees, and the disabled, who are left behind and their rights and livelihoods are undermined. Honorable Dauda A. Jallo, the Gambia's Attorney General and the Minister of Justice, presided over the opening.
As we strive to build an Africa free from human rights violations, we must recognize that human rights are not just a moral and legal obligation, but a necessity for socio-economic growth and cultural revival. By fostering inclusive, just, equitable societies, Africa can achieve lasting development and reclaim its cultural identity, standing strong on a global stage.
The forum hopes to harness the unwavering dedication of the participants, facilitators and partners to the cause of human rights, to inspire the continent's journey towards a united and prosperous Africa for all. For QTV News, I am Lamin Alai Fandindabo.
On Thursday, the Select Committee on Health, Children, Refugees and Humanitarian Relief convened a meeting with Ministry of Health officials to address the pressing challenges of importing medical drugs. Usman Jatta has more.
In 2022, the Gambia gained global attention following the tragic death of more than 70 children from an outbreak of acute kidney injury, AKI. This tragedy was linked to the alleged usage of cough syrups apparently manufactured in India, which were administered to these children. To avoid recurrence of such an incident, the Medicines Control Agency, MCA, insisted that all imported medicines must be registered and tested before distribution. One impact of these regulations is that the country is now grappling with a scarcity of drugs, as most suppliers are reluctant to conform to the regulations, mainly because of the cost involved. These stakeholders are meeting in response to urgent calls for reform to find a solution to ensure the availability and public safety of imported drugs. Dr. Momodo Tinyasi is the Acting Director of Health Services.
You know, the market in the country is very small. And if you want to register, and the cost for registration and testing is about maybe $300 per batch or more. So if you want to bring, because of the market in the country is very small, so most suppliers, they don't want to take that risk to register and test the drugs.
In 2023, the National Assembly approved a budget of $240 million for the procurement of medicines by the government-run institutions. However, as a result of the tighter importation regulations, the budget is underutilized. Here, Honorable Musa Baji of Talinding Kunjang and Honorable Jibim Balo.
The Noro is saying, since I'm giving you for free, I don't have to pay extra cost. What's your responsibility as a government? Now you take care of that testing for the donor and he give you medicine for free.
We are having challenges on even family planning products. Global Fund, HIV and AIDS, the law have a problem in this country because we were over ambitious. But even the law, what we are saying, even in the law itself, testing, you cannot test every qualities in the world. No country is doing it.
There is need to change the laws so that the Ministry of Health will not be faced with such a challenge. And other stakeholders that are involved in terms of selling drugs in this country can also not face with the same challenge.
The public are the main victims of this scarcity. The Ministry of Health's Permanent Secretary, Dr. Omar Jia Jr. and Dr. Momodo Tinyasi, the Acting Director of Health Services, outlined their ministry's ongoing efforts to provide a temporary solution to the scarcity.
We have written to GPPA. They have given us partial approval to deal with these UN partners. So we are about to sign a contract with UNOPS that will help us to be procuring some of the essential drugs.
In a bid to keep on trying to find a sustainable solution to the problem, the Health Select Committee has scheduled a broader meeting on Monday, October 21st with the Medicines Control Agency and the Minister of Health. All sides will be hoping a speedy and sustainable solution will emerge from those talks. Osman Jatta reporting for QTV News.
The Gambia Ports Authority on Friday held a second phase retreat with the media to update the public on a concession signed by the Gambia government. Amadou Tamba was there and this is his report.
The retreat was to provide detailed information on the recently signed contract between the Gambia government, GPA and Albeira Group, a Turkish company, to expand the Banjul port and the creation of a new deep sea port in Sanyang. The Banjul Port Master Plan was approved by the Gambia government in July 2019. The project also aims to acquire 2 new ferries after a contract was signed in August 2024 with delivery expected 16 months from the date it was signed. The expansion of the Banjul port is expected to reduce ship turnaround times and cut the costly congestion. Usman Jobate, the managing director of the Gambia Ports Authority, says communicating to the public via the media is essential to the implementation of this project.
Another risk that Banjul is faced with, our capacity to expand towards the city is constrained by the fact that the port is located within residential neighborhood and its close proximity to the commercial business district in Banjul. These are the major physical constraints that Banjul is faced with. And that's why the master plan also explored the potential to have a new deep sea port in the southern coastline of the country, where you will have deeper draft to attract bigger ships that are coming to West Africa, but could not come to Banjul because of this physical constraint. Now, as a rule of thumb in the industry, to get a facility in the southern coastline to have a deep water port will require minimum investment of $500 million to do the breakwater that is necessary to have a safe anchorage for the vessels and the ancillary support infrastructure.
MD Jobate clarifies the decision by the GPA to go into a private management for the Banjul port.
Now, the advantage that private participation in the ownership and management of port brings to the table is that it can leverage on the easy access to financial resources that is disposed with the private partner. They come along also with their management expertise, and also they can direct where the cargo goes. So at times, to remain relevant, Banjul Port is obliged to up its game and also look for private strategic partners that would ensure that the competitiveness of the Port of Banjul is enhanced and sustained.
Lamin Cham, a senior journalist, commended the GPA boss.
The fact that the ports management has recognized that there is a need for every detail about this to be transparently relayed to the public shows their willingness and their commitment to transparency, for which we will commend Mr. Jobata and his staff, because transparency, like you would know, these days is an expensive commodity, a rare commodity.
The company handling the contract, Al Bayrak, will bear all the financing risks for investment in the new deep sea port in Sanyang for a 30-year concession, while the Gambia government and GPA will also benefit from 4% of the gross revenue and dividends as holder of 20% equity. For QTV News, Amadou Tamba.
We will now go for a commercial break. When we return, we have more local and international news stories. Do stay tuned.
Welcome to the future of transportation in the Gambia. The Bertel-Harding Highway, a 22-kilometer double carriageway, is set to revolutionize travel and connectivity in our beloved country. The Bertel-Harding Highway is transforming transportation in the Gambia with new roundabouts and vehicular overpasses. But safety must come first. Standing along the road or at roundabouts to flag down taxis creates unsafe conditions and unnecessary traffic jams. Remember, always board taxis at designated taxi garages or the garas located at major traffic points. Drivers stopping in no stopping zones will be penalized. Let's keep our roads clear and safe. Together, we can ensure a safe and efficient journey for all.
Money and Orange Money has just made money transfer easier. Now you can send money from Gambia to Senegal directly from your Q Money wallet. So what are you waiting for? Get your Q Money account now and start sending money to your friends and families through Orange Money in Senegal now. For more information, call our customer care on 133. Q Money, Sunu Kalpe. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome back, and this is QTV News. Now, on Thursday, the United Nations Development Programme commemorated World Poverty Day at the Combo Beach Hotel, highlighting the urgent need for collaborative efforts to eradicate poverty and inequality in the Gambia. Mam Nabuka reports.
World Poverty Day, celebrated annually on October 17th, serves as a platform to acknowledge the struggles of those living in poverty and amplify their voices. This year's theme, Ending Social and Institutional Maltreatment, emphasizes the necessity of coming together to foster a just, peaceful, and inclusive society. It calls for dismantling the discrimination and intolerance that have become ingrained in government, business, civil society, and culture towards marginalized populations. Ms. Mandisa Moshologu, the UNDP resident representative, stressed our collective responsibility to eliminate all forms of mistreatment in social and institutional contexts, particularly highlighting the critical link between education and employment in reducing poverty.
Education. Because we're sitting there saying people are going to the University of the Gambia, they're going to various vocational trainings and everything else. But if you go, you dedicate your time for 3-4 years, and at the end of it, you get a wonderful degree and a piece of paper, and your mom and dad are very proud, but you can't get a job. So what is it that we can do to make sure that we are equipping the excellent talent pool within this great nation?
Dependency and gender inequality were also central to discussions surrounding poverty in the Gambia. Fatou Jagne Senghor, a gender and human rights advocate, says that gender equality remains largely superficial in the country, advocating for transformative leadership that creates more opportunities for women.
We've seen women, gender equality being a lip service. So I think that we need to talk about, and we need to really address it upfront, because otherwise all these processes, all these projects that all the partners are supporting us to do will be meaningless.
Dr. Moro Kurbali, a senior lecturer at the University of the Gambia, pointed to the concentration of business activity in the western region as a root cause of poverty, suggesting decentralization as a viable solution.
When you graduate from senior secondary school or skill center and you live in CRR, you will stay in CRR, get a job in CRR, start your family in CRR, do things in CRR. Now we have, the infrastructure is so good. It's improving, let me put it that way.
Yasin Seka, former nominated National Assembly member, underscored the necessity of prioritization in poverty eradication efforts. The event concluded with attendees sharing their stories and concerns, followed by a compelling drama performance on poverty, which highlighted the message that having resources equates to the responsibility to help others, advocating for equality and fair compensation for workers. Rose Sarr, UNFPA country representative, assured that the UN remains committed to working towards a brighter future for the Gambia. Reporting for QTV News, I am Mam Nabuka.
From that, the Network of African National Human Rights Institutions, NANRI, concluded its 4-day forum in Banjul on Wednesday, with significant commitments from stakeholders in the human rights sector. Lalem Kamara tells us more.
As the forum wrapped up, participants shared insights from group discussions on strategies to enhance collaboration among national human rights institutions. NHRIS, NANRI, the Pan-African Parliament, PAP, and other key stakeholders to implement and monitor Sustainable Development Goal SDG 16 and Goal 11 of the AU Agenda 2063. SDG 16 relates to peace, justice, and strong institutions, while the AU's Goal 11 relates to established and strengthened democratic values, human rights, justice, and the rule of law. The National Human Rights Commission of the Gambia played a crucial role in the meeting. In his closing remarks, the Commission's chairman, Emmanuel Daniel Juve, reaffirmed the Commission's commitment to safeguarding the rights and dignity of all individuals. He emphasized that through close collaboration, they can establish strong legal frameworks, ensure accountability, and foster a future grounded in the rule of law and respect for human rights.
We should always remember the most marginalized, children, women, persons with disabilities, refugees, migrants, people of different sexual orientation, and other vulnerable groups cannot be overstated. In addressing the prevention of torture, the promotion of socio-economic rights, and the protection of vulnerable groups, we have reaffirmed our commitment to advancing human dignity and justice.
Honorable Zan Marini Birantiji, chairperson of the Human Rights and Justice Committee of the Pan-African Parliament, along with Commissioner Patricia Nassau Nanema, chairperson of the Human Rights Commission of Sierra Leone, highlighted the urgent need for human rights institutions to intensify efforts in the protection and promotion of human rights, reflecting on the tragic loss of lives in conflicts and other crises across Africa. Felucio Adegalu, Program Officer for Regional Mechanism and SDGs at NANRI, underscored key takeaways from the dialogue, highlighting the critical necessity for partnerships between institutions to effectively address human rights issues and align legislation and policies with international human rights standards.
The first takeaway is that there is obviously the need to, institutionalize collaboration between national human rights institutions through NANRI and also the Pan-African Parliament. The second key takeaway is the fact that there is clearly a lot of problem with data collection. So in this regard, that is also one of the gaps that NANRI can fill by, ensuring that we find a way to collaborate with other AU developmental partners.
As this important meeting concluded, officials indicated that follow-up meetings with stakeholders will be held to ensure that the recommendations and action plans developed during the forum are effectively implemented. For QTV News, Lolly M. Kamara.
Coming up next is international news. As World Food Day was observed this Wednesday, 16th October, it was revealed that Southern Africa is reeling from a severe drought exacerbated by El Niño, which has left 27 million people facing food insecurity, according to the World Food Programme. The ongoing crisis has resulted in 21 million children suffering from malnutrition. Julden Jai has the rest of the story.
El Niño, a recurring climate phenomenon, has led to unprecedented dry spells during critical times of the 2023-2024 planting season, causing widespread crop failures and livestock losses in a region where 70% of the population depends on agriculture. Although the current El Niño cycle has ended, the repercussions will persist, with the hunger crisis expected to worsen until the next harvest season, scheduled for April to May 2025. Countries including Lesotho, Malawi, Namibia, Zambia, and Zimbabwe have declared national drought disasters, with Mozambique and Angola also significantly affected. The region is anticipated to face a considerable food deficit, necessitating the import of approximately 3 million tons of maize. This situation is likely to exacerbate already high rates of chronic malnutrition and vitamin deficiencies linked to poor dietary quality. To address this crisis, the World Food Programme is collaborating with the regional bloc, the Southern African Development Community, national governments, and various partners to provide support to the most affected communities with limited resources, aiming to prevent loss of life and livelihoods. In recognition of World Food Day 2024, Kudonzu, Director General of the Food and Agriculture Organization (FAO), emphasized the theme, Right to Food for a Better Life and a Better Future, highlighting the fundamental right of all individuals to adequate food. Here is an excerpt from the FAO Director General's statement.
Promoting food diversity can improve the protection of biodiversity and cultural diversity. Today, smallholder farmers and family farmers are the backbone to producing enough food and preserving traditional food cultures. We know that around 730 million people are facing hunger due to the global challenges caused by the man-made and natural disasters, based on the 2024 Sofia report led by FAO. And more than 2.8 billion people in the world are unable to afford a healthy diet. There is no time to lose. We must take immediate action. We must act together. This World Food Day let us renew our commitment to build a more efficient, more inclusive, more resilient, and more sustainable agri-food system that respects everyone's demand for varied and healthy food.
The United Nations chose October 16 as the commemoration day because the Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, was founded on that day in 1946. For QTV News, I am Julden Yai.
Before we end, here's a recap of the headlines. The Gambian government, in collaboration with the Secretariat of the African Commission on Human and People's Rights, on Thursday began the hosting of the 31st Ordinary Session of the African Commission on Human and People's Rights. On Thursday, the Select Committee on Health, Children, Refugees and Humanitarian Relief convened a meeting with Ministry of Health officials to address the pressing challenges of importing medical drugs. The Gambia Ports Authority on Friday held the second phase retreat with the media to update the public on a ports concession signed by the Gambia government. The United Nations Development Programme commemorated World Poverty Day on Thursday, highlighting the urgent need to eradicate poverty and inequality in the Gambia. In international news, as World Food Day was observed this Wednesday, 16th October, it was revealed that Southern Africa is reeling from a severe drought exacerbated by El Nino, which has left 27 million people facing food insecurity, according to the World Food Programme. That's all we have for you in this bulletin. Join us tomorrow at 8 p.m. for another bulletin. Thanks for watching.